review, and reflection. And today we are talking about
Tulum, Mexico.
Tulum, Mexico, over in the Yucatan Peninsula in the estado de Quintana Roo. For those of you that are unfamiliar with our location reviews, we go over a set list of criteria, and those are...
So the criteria we're going to talk about is going to be climate, transportation, family friendliness, cost of living, infrastructure, and then overall vibe check.
As far as the climate in Tulum goes, the flora, fauna, all of that, Tulum is in the jungle. So there are areas where they haven't built out yet of just very dense, just forests. And one of the beautiful things about this is that one, there's some really unique places that you can stay. We've actually stayed in a tree house in Tulum, which is super cool. We had an amazing view, absolutely gorgeous. And then the other thing is that a part of the natural climate in Tulum are the cenotes. So these are all over the Yucatan Peninsula, but Tulum gives you access to some of the most gorgeous cenotes we've been to.
Along with the climate, let's talk about the critters that you find in the jungle, right? Okay. So you are in the jungle. Honestly, my perspective is the bugs aren't that bad.
The bugs are terrible.
The bugs aren't that bad.
The bugs are so bad.
I think the way that they build a lot of the condos in Tulum, they know that tourists are coming here and don't want to deal with mosquitoes. So a lot of places are like mosquito netted. I feel like they're doing pest control. But like, when have we ever seen just bugs throughout our Airbnb?
It's the little tiny sugar ants. That's really the thing, is the little tiny itty bitty little sugar ants and critters. And I think, to be fair, like you said, any sort of like jungle climate, any sort of climate that's just very integrated with nature, you're gonna have this issue. I will say though, through the Riviera Maya is where I've experienced it just like the most of any place we've gone.
The sugar ants, I will say, we do see those almost every time we go. But it's always been worse in certain apartments versus others, so they're doing something to mitigate those.
Yeah.
I've never had an issue with mosquitoes in Tulum.
Yeah, no.
And the only time I saw, like, what was that big, like, centipede? That was in Puerto Escondido.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't think the bugs would get to me that badly in Tulum, but just know you're moving to the jungle. You're living in the jungle. You're visiting the jungle. There's going to be animals and bugs that you've probably never seen before.
Yeah. All right. Criteria number 2 is infrastructure. Overall, how well built out, how livable is a certain destination? And I think that one of the more important things to discuss when talking about infrastructure in Tulum is how you get around.
Yeah, transportation in Tulum, for me, I'm getting a car every single time. I'm renting a car. I think we've gone there before without a car, at least for part of our stay. And to me, I just feel so limited with what I can do, where I can go, because it is so hot. Bikes, I feel like you can take your bike, and we're gonna do like a map on the screen here of like the beach routes and the routes into town. But like, I'm not riding my bike for like 10 miles just to go get breakfast. Like,
but that's part of it. That's part of it.
I would say right
this
now,
guy's not Tulluminati.
In 2024, Tulum, do yourself a favor. And like, if like we have kids, this is why we rent a car. But people are renting ATVs and scooters. That's another popular way to get around. There are taxis there, but to me, you're just spending so much money on taxis. You may as well rent a car or an ATV or a scooter.
Yeah. So I think that's an important call out, because the primary methods of transportation, you can drive, you can AVT, you can bike, you can get a scooter, or you can like ride your taxi, whatever. I don't like to drive internationally. It doesn't matter where I am, but especially in Tulum because of the roads or lack thereof. So Tulum is still very much being like built. There's construction everywhere. There are some roads that are completely unpaved. You have potholes, you have rocks in the roads, all sorts of things. I think which would probably be even worse on like an ATV or a scooter. But depending on where you stay, you may or may not need to get around very frequently. So just bear in mind that there will be a little bit of traffic like on Cuba Ave. Some of the roads are not paved, especially if you're staying in like El Izam or La Valeta. And then also, yeah, the distances between like the beach and Tulum town can be pretty great. So if you are choosing to bike, you'll leave Tulum in better shape than you got
there. I'll pray for you. As of right now, 2024, Uber is not available in Tulum. So I think last time we were here, one new addition that they did have, this is a little off topic, Rappi is now available.
So you don't have to rely on Tomato. I wonder if Rappi like bought Tomato.
I think Rappi is just expanding. So when you get to Tulum now, it wasn't like this a year ago. But if you want to order your food delivery, Rappi is now available in Tulum, which is exciting.
Yeah, it is. We love Rappi.
They saved us a couple times.
Love us some Rappi.
So as far as flying into Tulum goes and general infrastructure, they have built a new airport, Tulum Airport.
And it's gorgeous.
And it is beautiful. It's brand new. Obviously, it smells fresh, it looks fresh, and it's not very crowded. So if you've ever been to Cancun Airport, we know that sometimes it can be a hellscape. So do yourself a favor, fly directly into Tulum Airport. And the airport is about a 40-minute drive into town. So you still do have to do a bit of a drive, but it's not that 2-hour drive from Cancun to Tulum. They also, along with the airport, have built the Maya train, Tren Maya, and it is available to take you through the Yucatan Peninsula down into Tulum. We didn't see it though.
The station, I think, is at the airport. So the train itself doesn't run into just like the middle of Tulum itself, but it's really nice, especially if you're, I don't know, living a nomadic lifestyle and you just want to explore more, to be able to take maybe like the ADO bus to like the train station, because it goes through like Campeche, it goes through Playa, it goes up to Tulum. Yeah, it goes to Merida, like it literally I'm doing this, like you can't just put a map of it, but it literally like circles the entirety of the Yucatan, which is just so dope. And personally, I hope that some of the other cities that kind of get, I don't want to say neglected, right, from tourists, but some of the other cities that get neglected, I hope that they get a chance to kind of like shine and their local economies get supported now that it's super easy to get over there. The other important bit of infrastructure lies around utilities. We get questions all the time about power, especially internet, right? There's a large digital nomad community in Tulum, water, accessibility to these very basic resources. And I will say, last time we were there, we had just a couple of issues, but with these things, you never really know if it's, the city or the building or something like that. I think the only times while we've been traveling where we've ever just lost power have been in the Yucatan, unfortunately. There's a time with Playa del Carmen, it just happened to us in Tulum. And then also the water, the last time we were in Tulum, got shut off. I think though, other than that, it's very much just like a building to building situation. I think that overall, when you have internet in Tulum, the internet's gonna be good. There are plenty of co-working cafes, there are plenty of Airbnbs we've stayed at, other accommodations. We haven't had any issues. And with the water as well. So I think it's fine. If you have to work, I would say personally Tulum is a safe place to work from, even if you do have an issue with power or the Wi-Fi and your accommodation where you're staying. There's so many co-working cafes. There's so many places you can go and just get a quick coffee. You can hop on your computer and do what you need to do. Yeah.
One thing that will slow you down for sure is just the general network connectivity. So like your network on your phone, your LTE or your 5G is not going to work in so many places in Tulum. So that could be extremely frustrating. So like once you get onto the Wi-Fi, yes, they have quick Wi-Fi available. I don't know if they're using Elon Musk's Wi-Fi or mesh or whatever, but they have good Wi-Fi. But then when you leave your restaurant or your hotel or whatever, you're just in the street, you may not have network connectivity at all.
Yeah.
And so it's important to understand this is a town that's still being built. The infrastructure is like actively being built as people are vacationing and living there. So you're probably going to run into a few power outages, water outages. It's the Caribbean coast, so like things happen, hurricane season comes, it's unexpected, but our experience is not terrible. So we've been able to make it work. I've worked from there plenty of times. Just have like a good backup option is what I would say.
So the very next criterion is family friendliness or kid friendliness. Can you bring your kid to Tulum, which we actually have videos about. I'll put those up there in the cards. And what does it look like to hang out with kids in Tulum? The first thing that I'll say is if you want indoor activities with your children, which you do because it's hot, make sure that your accommodation has like a ludoteca or a children's area or something like that, because they are just not easy to find once you leave your building.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of indoor activity in Tulum. Like I said, they're still building town. Maybe in a couple of years, they will add like a mall or some more indoor play spaces, gymborees, stuff like that. But right now, I mean, I'm thinking off the top of my head, you probably have to find a restaurant that has like a play space in it. And we saw maybe one while we were in Tulum this time.
Yeah.
A lot of what kids are attracted to are going to be doing on a day-to-day basis are going to be outdoor activities, right? So you're going to be getting active.
Yeah. So there are a couple of playgrounds, actually. There's one in like Tulum Centro, which is cute. It has some little shade awnings. We played there with the kids. And then there's another one that we've gone to in Aliasama no shade. So ensure that you get there nice and early, and also work your way through the maze that is Aldea Sama. But again, neighborhood tour is a whole different video.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's not a whole lot of like mindful infrastructure built for children. So again, your best bet if you're going with kids is to make sure that your accommodation has like a ludoteca or a children's area or some sort of like soft, preferably indoor play space. Be prepared for pool toys and beach toys, and then the beach clubs again are so fantastic, right? It's safe, it's contained, there's food, there's drink, and there will likely be other families and or other kids for your kids to play with.
Yeah. As far as like restaurants go with kids, we brought our kids to multiple restaurants in Tulum. Was not a problem. Yes, there is like the party crowd over in Tulum, and like some of the beach clubs are really just day parties. I wouldn't recommend bringing my kid to those, but there are tons of restaurants that are like vegan, family friendly, kid friendly, American centered menus. I mean, they have everything when it comes to like eating out with kids.
We went to Potheads and they even had like those games.
Yeah.
They had like a little Jenga set and stuff. So there's little things around. Definitely, but I would just make sure again that you're just mindful of where you're going. Our next criterion is going to be our vibe check. So overall, what does it feel like? What does it look like? Who is this for? All that kind of stuff. And I will definitely say, I think Tulum is one of those places where either you really love it or it gives you the ick. And I think there are some very specific reasons for that. So for me personally, I really like Tulum. I'm Tuluminati. We can go to Tulum a couple times a year and I'm always going to enjoy it. But I do think that there are some things that may feel off when you go there because there's a very obvious disparity in the housings, accommodations, and what's been built for tourists versus how the locals live and what their sections of town look like. That just is what that is. And I think that the other thing is there's this concept of, you know, like, I don't know, very woke, like high spirituality, yoga, meditation, green juice, or you know the vibes, like around Tulum. I definitely think that that's there, but it's also not super just like kind of pushy and like in your face and like overly woo, if that's something that you've been thinking about.
Overall vibe check for me is like, it is amazing. I think it's a little challenging with young kids.
Yeah, Tulum is not one of my like favorite places in the world to bring our kids to, simply because, and we touched on this, like there's not a whole lot to do, the roads are really there, the infrastructure can be kind of like depending. But I will say, like as a general vibe, I really enjoy Tulum. I feel like there's a lot of peace in Tulum, and then of course like the weather, the nature, the cenotes, there definitely is sort of like just the spiritual vibe over it that you could, maybe I'm just like a woo girl, and if you're not like a woo girl, then you know, again, the Miami adjacent crowd is there too, but I don't know, I just find it to be really peaceful. I feel really, really relaxed there. And then like Justin said, I think there's a fairly good mix of people that are there. You have like IG baddie people, and you have like, I don't know, tech bro people, and you have like, you know, other people from over Mexico who come to Tulum to vacation because it's just gorgeous. We don't see a whole lot of families for obvious reasons, but in general, I think Tulum is like a really, really beautiful, wonderful place. I will say what you get out of Tulum is also going to depend heavily on where you stay in Tulum. Because if you're staying near the beach, that's completely different than being in like Riviera. Tulum is completely different than being in like La Valeta. So just be mindful of that.
Yeah. And I hate to say this, but I feel like the tourist tax is now starting to just hike up in every part of Tulum. So the tourist traps, there are some tourist traps in Tulum. I feel like there's not a lot of like free activities these days. And I feel like it may change year over year. So my projection of Tulum in the next few years isn't really the most positive.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that likely too, once the, I don't know, general sort of like novelty around Tulum wears off, or once it's a little bit more built out and the local economy sort of stabilizes, we'll likely see a stabilization around that too. But as of right now, yeah, like Tulum is not cheap. It's not cheap.
It's not a cheap place to go.
It's just not cheap. Like if your group chat's already hanging on by a thread, don't bring the girls trip to Tulum, because at least 2 or 3 other people in there really just don't have enough money to finance it. Like it's not a cheap place. And that transitions us beautifully into cost of living. Now, what the site that we always use when we're looking at cost of living for places to live is numbeo.com. It's fairly accurate, it stays up to date, and it's a great resource. But I will say, like, coming off of what we just said, like Tulum's not cheap. just know that. Definitely, I think cheaper to live than to vacation, just because a short-term rental accommodation is going to add up a whole lot more than rent, but even so.
Yeah, and like I think the cheapest thing there is going to be your rent. Like one of the cheapest things. So Tulum has very nice accommodations for not a lot of money.
And they're new.
They're new. They're not. They're like nice, plush, good furniture. Like the Airbnb market in Tulum, very much a buyer's market or a renter's market. So like there are tons of options. You'll have somewhere nice to stay without having to break the bank, right?
Yeah.
And you won't be far from the beach either. I would say where you start to like see that influx in cost of living is like your food, maybe your gym membership, if your building doesn't have one. The beach clubs will definitely wear you down. Like if you're going to a beach club to just enjoy the beach every couple days, you're going to be spending like $50 each time.
And even if you decide to go to where the beach is free, I think you're gonna have to go like more north or more south of like generally Tulum, and then you're talking about transportation costs. Unless you're one of those people that's riding your bike everywhere, in which case more power to you.
I don't even think we've been to like a free cenote. So every cenote that we're going to, we're paying an entrance fee to enjoy.
The one in Aldeasan is free.
It is, okay.
Yeah, the one in Aldeasan is free. That's the only one.
Yeah, so like food, I mean, and the food, like I said, if you do your research ahead of time, like we've had great food for like low prices, but then like some restaurants that you're just looking on Google Maps for like are charging ridiculous prices. Like we left like $70 bills for our family of four.
Like 3 entrees and a juice.
Yeah, and the food was mediocre. So like definitely have to like find, you know, where are the locals eating, where are the locals going to the beach, what cenotes do the locals go to, because you are just getting gringo priced, essentially.
For sure.